Thank you, and a very good afternoon to everybody present in the hall. I think we've had quite an exciting day, spending the entire day talking about energy transition. What we're going to talk about is an aspect which I think is just as critical to enable the energy transition and equally for the health and prosperity of our sector. We're going to talk about digital. I'm an engineer by training, but I also am a keen student of history. And I sincerely believe that those who do not learn from history are condemned to repeat it. Let me just start with a little factoid to get things going. I think, in 1970, the Fortune 500 list that existed at that point in time, if we were to compare it to what it is right now, I think 80% of the companies have gone off that list who were there in 1970. And the simple reason was that they were not moving with the times. Now that is a cue for why we are having this conversation right now. We've spent the entire day talking about energy transition, which I'm sure will leave winners and losers very, very clearly over the next few years. Digital is another such force. Digitalization is upon us whether we like it or not. It's not an energy sector specific phenomena. It's something which is impacting all the sectors. In fact, my sincere belief is there are only two types of businesses: those that have already been disrupted by digital, and the rest which will get disrupted by digital in the days to come. So it's great to see that we are talking about digital at this point in time. My name is Saurabh Singh. I'm a partner and with Kearney, and I lead the energy and process industries practice for the firm across India and APAC. I've been with the firm for a couple of decades, and I must say the kind of work that we've been doing over the last couple of days has changed dramatically in light of some of the developments that we are seeing in our sectors. So great to be here with you, and great to be here with this eminent panel. Let me just tee things off, and I'll just start off with a quick question to Mr. Muralikrishna. So, we spent the entire day today talking about energy transition and what will it take to make it happen and so on. But one of the things that probably wasn't discussed as much is that energy transition is leading, and especially the advent of renewables, is leading to a multifold increase in the complexity of our power systems. It is something which is unavoidable. And in order to deal with it, I think the power of digital analytics has almost become a necessity today. So just wanted to hear from you, what is it that we are doing at Grid India on the digital and analytics side which is enabling this? If you could just elaborate on that, please.
Good evening, all. Thank you, Mr. Saurabh. The energy transition is being taken place at a rapid pace. Between 2004 and 2021, we had seen around 240% of the capacity increased compared to the 2014 by 2021. So this rapid pace is throwing the challenges in all sectors, in fact, in particular in power sector. The key challenge has been viewed as two aspects are there. Considering this energy transition. First one is the energy transition from the fossil fuels to the non-fossil generation like renewable wind, solar and hydro. This wide geographical spread and with much smaller individual capacities we compare to the conventional plants of huge capacities at certain locations, at few specified locations. And this wind and solar energy is widespread, geographically spread all over the place, mostly on the coastal belt. And another factor of this new energy is throwing the challenge that it is the nature of their variability and inconsistency, and also the uncertainty. It depends upon the weather factor. This renewable energy is throwing the challenge. To address these issues, the Grid India has taken various initiatives. We had established around 12 REMC, Renewable Energy Management Centers, to specially deal with this new energy in the grid India for monitoring and controlling. And the major aspect of these REMCs is the forecasting and scheduling of these renewable energy generators. And also widening of the market had been established with products like Green Open Access Registry to encourage and streamline this renewable energy integration and their market participation. And at the system logistics side also, we had been facing very the challenges. One is this integration of these plants with the mainstream SCADA system in a secured manner is a challenge for us because these small scale RE plants have the minimalistic IT/OT on infrastructure, which is spread over a wide area of the geographical areas. And due to such wide variation, it is becoming us to integrate with our SCADA systems as these plants have to implement the robust security architecture at that plant level. Anyway, in the mainstream SCADA, we are implementing the layered architecture for integrating this RE data and this RE through REMC control centers. And we had been continuously taking up with these RE utilities to implement the cyber security guidelines on in the power sector by Central Electricity Authority for improving the cyber hygiene of these plants and also the overall system. So in a nutshell, finally say that we are well geared up to sail this energy transition happening in India and to face the challenges and complexity through continuous improvements in the three areas of verticals of people, process and technology.
Thank you, Mr. Muralikrishna, and I think it's quite insightful. The fact that, with the increase in the proportion of renewable energy in our grid, obviously the use of analytical tools to adequately forecast how much our RE load is going to be at various points in time is important, and it's quite heartening to see the amount of AI/ML that is being used at Grid India to make that happen. With that, let me move now to Pankaj. And Pankaj, you represent PPAC, and and this is an entity where I think a lot of us have been relying on for data and insights related to the oil and gas sector for many, many years now. Of course, now they say that data is the new oil, and you've been the custodian of this oil for a fairly long time. But I think what this group would be very interested in knowing is what is it that we are doing with this data? How are we, for example, using analytics to churn out more insights? And how can it be more useful to the stakeholders here?
Thank you, Saurabh. You said oil is, data is new oil. And we deal in data of oil. So that makes it more so important. Since you have started with this analogy and you started with history, let me also start with some literature. Our Prime Minister often talks about 7 pillars of energy security. And the 7th pillar of these is digitalization of energy systems. Hope we all know that from where this 7 number comes. This comes from 7 horses of chariot of solar god. So that reminds me of a story which is titled Suraj Ka Satwaं Ghoda. And incidentally, this is written by Dharmveer Bharti, who was long-time editor of Dharmyog, which was publication of ET only, who are the organizers of this event. In that story, what he says is that when 6 horses of chariot get tired, get wounded, it is the 7th horse which takes the chariot forward into the future. The same thing is true about digitalization of energy systems, that it is the a horse which will take the energy systems or energy into future. Now coming to your specific query that what we do with the data at PPAC, but before that I would like to tell the audience that it is quite often we are known for data which is about consumption, because that is most common kind of data which is being used so repeatedly and quoted everywhere. But we also collect so many other data. It is about supply, it is about production, it is about pricing, it is about so many other things related to oil and gas in country. So what we do with this data is that we analyze this data and give back to the industry. This is probably one of the only forums where we collaborate with the industry, whosoever is in oil and gas, upstream, downstream, midstream, and we collaborate with them, we collect their data and we give it back to them after analyzing or collecting or tabulating it. And with that, not only us, every company analyzes this data. How we analyze it, first thing simple, what we have been doing in industry also is that how the consumption is growing or production is going up or down, that is the basic analysis. But with the energy transition taking place, what we are doing is that how share of oil and gas is moving in that basket, and how the target of government, which is to take gas to 15% as bridge fuel, and how fossil fuels have to be reduced and renewables have to be increased, that can be done. And for that, what we do is that we analyze what are the possibilities where other fuels, other oils, other mediums can replace oil and gas, like biofuels. You all know that ethanol is being blended in petrol, and we monitor that how ethanol blending is taking place and how it is increasing year by year. Now it has reached almost 12%. That kind of data we analyze and give back to industry and give them reasons to take focus on that and increase that. Not only that, when energy is taking place in different forms, now when EVs are increasing, the electric chargers are required at outlets, because outlets can't go out of business if petrol vehicles are not there. Although the numbers show that petrol vehicles will still be there for next 20-25 years. But if electric vehicles come, the same outlets can't refuse them to charge, to fuel them. So we analyze that how vehicle visit are changing on the outlets. There is a study which we did last year, which is available on our website also. I encourage that all of us who are in industry must visit our website and see what we do. So that study is about how sectoral sales are taking place from outlet. Quite often what we do is that we analyze sectoral sales from first level. In this case, what we have done is that we are analyzing the sales from second level, from the outlets, which generally are said the retail sales. We have analyzed that sale and we have tried to find out which kind of vehicles are taking diesel, how much diesel is taking place, how petrol, and in passenger vehicle, for example, how much diesel is there, how much petrol is there, and within passenger vehicle, how much SUVs, how much cars, how much two-wheelers, that kind of analysis is taking place. That actually helps the oil industry to make strategies about future outlets, how outlets will be made, what kind of fueling will take place there, and how the facilities will be placed there. So that kind of analysis is being done. Similarly, I will give you another example, if time permits, that it is not only that we do consumption data and supply data, as I said, we also analyze data about subsidies and data about consumption of LPG through Ujjwala, for example. And we do a big exercise continuously about deduplication. What is deduplication is that in spite of so much efforts about identification, there are cases where same families have taken two connections. So can you imagine that out of 9 crore Ujjwala connections, we churn out the data every month, that 9 crore connections, and try to find out how many people are there who have duplicate connections. And we weed them out so that government money, taxpayers' money is not misused by taking two subsidies in the same family. So that kind of exercise is also taking place. I think in this round, that should be enough, and we will come back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Pankaj, and this is really insightful. Some of this some of the analytics that you spoke about, be it LPG or even figuring out the right locations for EVs and so on, is very useful and contextual. I'm sure most of the people in this room will be able to relate to it. Shifting gears, and while staying on oil and gas, let's move a bit upstream to Mr. Paparaju. And Mr. Paparaju, you've been someone who's spent most of his working life in operations, so you have a very good understanding of the hardcore operations that are involved in upstream. So my question to you would be, where do you think digital can have the maximum impact? Digital analytics can create maximum impact in an upstream oil and gas setup.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, thanks to ET for inviting me here to be a member of this August forum. Digital per se, in oil industry, we are there. We have been digital since 80s. SCADA is there since 70s. We used to call remote processing monitoring control. SCADA has a different name. So if you come to any, because most of our oil discovery is per se in ONGC or in Western Offshore, where everything is automated. We make our own water. The sewage treatment plants run on PLCs. Emission norms and all, even oil drop doesn't have to, we have to recover each and oil drop. We have to recover every drop of oil, not to make the effluents go into the sea. So we have a lot of processes built in and heavily automated. The entire living quarters is heating and ventilation, automated control, pressurized control. So digital per se is a technology, how to use the facility. So what we are now moving into, we see is data-driven decision making. Am I taking the data to the decision makers? Are the decision makers having all the data available which they can make the decision more better? And when we look at transformation, you say digital transformation, personally ask is, what is it I am transforming? Am I changing the way I work? Am I changing the way I think? Am I changing the way I operate my plant? If it is not, I see only an overlap of technology, replacing one technology into another. Otherwise, I am not reaping the benefits of technology. Unless it is an opportunity, when I change the technology, it is an opportunity to see and rectify the process. If I can make process improvements, step back, look at the process, bring in the technologies, because time and tide waits for none, we all know. I add normally technology also. Time, tide and technology wait for none. If you don't use technology, technology bypasses you. And we in ONGC have always been using the cutting edge technologies. Right from 70s, we had we call it Arya, but I don't know how many of you heard of it. Commercially, the supercomputer. They have most fastest supercomputer in India in private sector is with ONGC. We operate the GNG data. So we have been per se digital, but as I said, what is the data I'm looking at? Who is validating the data? If the data is something, say, X kg per square centimeter is the pressure, who is validating it? What is the authenticity of data? In digital, data validation is a big challenge. So we have now the processes built in is, as the data flows, we process the data with the quality level checks, which was not there earlier. Human validation was very important. Now automatically we validate the data. If there is an intermittent fault, if the sensor is not there, if you use the analytics, suppose the sensor is defective for 12 hours, use the data for analytics, you get a wrong result. So in spite of all the paraphernalia, you make a big ecosystem, but don't validate the data. So data is quite important from validation perspective, classification perspective.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Mr. Paparaju, for these insights. First, I would like to agree with you that the oil and gas industry for a long time has probably been one of the front runners when it comes to adopting new technology. I think that the extent of sensorization, both in upstream assets as well as in refineries, has truly been cutting edge for many years now. What the industry is now doing, probably a little more extensively, is using this data to create insights. And that is where the point that you mentioned around making sure that the integrity of that data is taken care of is becoming probably that much more crucial, because there's this acronym GIGO, which is garbage in, garbage out. And I think if one is not taking into account the integrity of the data that we are using, then we can really end up with very suboptimal conclusions. So that's a very interesting call out that you're making. Let me, kind of on the same point, Mr. Pankaj, let me come back to you and ask you, what is the, overall level of adoption of advanced analytics that you're seeing in the oil and gas industry? Because obviously, before coming to PPC, you've spent, many decades in the oil and gas industry, particularly on the downstream side. So what are some of the opportunities and challenges that you see?
Thank you. To begin with, as my fellow panelists said, and you also said that normally what is thought that oil and gas industry in country is not enough digitalized. More particularly, this impression comes because most of it is in public sector. That is not true. In fact, we were the pioneers in digitalization in country. And as shared by fellow panelists also, we were the first people to use computers. When I joined my company 35 years back, the computers were already there in 88. So, and similarly in early 2000, ERP systems came to all oil companies. So that kind of digitalization or automation is taking place. But why we are not known is because most of it is in back end. Unlike banking or what we are using PayBack or Google Pay at every step, so we know more about them, not about oil and gas industry. But there is enough digitalization there also. As asked by you or prompted you by you, I would like to share with the audience that we have 86,000 outlets in country, petrol pumps, what we call. And of these, almost 76,000 are of PSUs. And out of that, around 65,000 are selling more than 40 KL. 40 KL is a benchmark where we see that that is enough to invest in that outlet. So all 65,000 outlets are automated. Automated means that their all operations can be monitored or controlled from one control room. All outlets. For example, I would like to tell you that although prices are not changing currently, but you know that system is that prices need to change every day at 6 o'clock. How does that change at 65,000 outlets? It is not that every outlet, every dealer is changing them. It is from our control rooms that prices get changed in one go at all 65,000 outlets. And maybe, I'm not sure whether audience who is not from this sector, that every outlet, except that in the periphery, every outlet will have a different pricing. It is not like other commodities where pricing may be common. RSPs or MSPs are common. It is every outlet after a territory will have a different pricing. So that pricing gets changed automatically from a control room. That kind of automation has taken place, and that is for the benefit of customer. So that the customers are not getting cheated because of pricing, because of so many other things. For example, I will give you another example that all outlets today have digitalized machines, dispensing machines. So in earlier days, you remember that zero dikhana bahut important cheez thi, कि zero दिखाया कि नहीं दिखाया. आज भी we follow in industry that zero दिखाओ, but even if he doesn't show you, he can't do anything. As soon as nozzle is up, it will go back to zero automatically. That kind of machines are there. So many things of that kind are happening in retail segment. And in LPG, I hope all of us know that you can book your LPG refills through even Alexa. That kind of integration with the technology is taking place. And you can make payments through digital mediums that for that purchase, whether at outlet or gas. So many things are happening at forefront. At outlet or at LPG where customer interface is there. But apart of that, so many things are happening at back end also. Most of our assets, again, as I said, that there are 86,000 outlets of private sector or public sector. Those are spread at 86,000 places. And in most of the cases, these assets are digitalized, assets at those outlets. So that kind of digitalization is there in there, and it is for the benefit of the customers, benefit of the investors, benefit of the government, which is putting up so much money in PSUs. So all that is to benefit every sector or every user of that segment.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Pankaj, and this is quite to the point. Just shifting gears now, and there are two CISOs here on the panel with me. So let me first move to Mr. Muralikrishna and ask you, with the increased adoption of digital analytics, the one kind of unwanted side effect also has been related to cybersecurity. Of course, Mr. Paparaju spoke about the integrity of data, which again is an important point, and so is cybersecurity, and which is emerging as a major challenge to the usage of large-scale data securely by the industry. So, and I know that in case of Grid India, probably it's the data integrity issue which is a bigger challenge as compared to the security, but would just want you to walk us through your perspectives on this.
Yes, it is right that the cybersecurity concerns are growing up with the more digitalization day by day. The attack surface is increasing day by day, and also the attacking technology is also improving day by day. So basically, for us, as far the grid operation is concerned, we are concerned about the availability and integrity of the data is the most important for us. And for the RE plant side, for the cyber security, the plant, whenever they are commissioning itself, they have to ensure that all cyber security measures have been taken. That is for the plant side. From the grid operation side, basically we have two major verticals. One is we call the operational technology, OT systems. That includes the real-time data acquisitions, visualizations, and the decision support systems. So and the second one is the IT infrastructure, where these market control mechanisms and analytics and offline management schemes are developed. So in the OT side, we have the limited protocols, and there is also a more closed type of architecture where the chances of the cyber concern is less. Still, with the increasing of the various new platforms and the visualization techniques and integration of the more heterogeneous environments, for the most of the OT vendors, so this is leading to the more cyber security challenge on the operational technology side also. Anyway, the key to protect our systems is from the external threats is we defined a well-defined boundary, well-defined perimeter, and the whitelisted traffic flows and a secured limited access. This is the key to protect our OT systems. And in the modern day, in the coming days, many LDCs are replacing their SCADA structure. So in that, we are we have provided more cyber security controls, both from the mitigation point of view and also from the monitoring point of view. We have added more features like network access control, anti-IPT, and deep packet monitoring, including OT protocols. So in IT, the challenges are more from the external threat vectors rather than the internal side. So various web-based applications with multidisciplinary participation is a major challenge for us in the IT side. So we have established a robust, secured and layered IT infrastructure to implement various information security controls. And we are slowly moving towards the zero trust architecture with clear visibility of the assets. So, and we are controlling the behavior of the systems through our Security Operations Control Center SOC. So, and our efforts are continuously on to mitigate the cyber security challenges.
Perfect. Thank you. Very interesting, and I'll probably pose a very similar question to Mr. Paparaju. Some of the assets that the oil and gas industry per se and ONGC in particular is handling, they are assets of national significance, and hence cybersecurity automatically becomes a very important consideration as far as they are concerned. So how, I mean, while on the one hand there is a much greater push now for IT-OT integration and using a lot more OT data for insights, at the same time, one also needs to make sure that cybersecurity is managed. So how are you looking at it?
Well, nowadays, we were all affected by cybersecurity. Everyone knows, everyone is affected. Everyone got a WhatsApp message asking them, leaking, incentivizing. So there is everybody is exposed to cybersecurity. In spite of that, 70%, as per statistics available latest, 70% of the people click a link knowing that this link is not a good, it's not to be clicked. Still people click. That is a human behavior analysis. So cybersecurity is a challenge because normally whatever systems we build, they are protecting the perimeter. It's like we call it the casual defense. If you see a film or you go to history, you mentioned history, and you said that history has to be learned from. We all seen a lot of castles in history, and every castle was built for defensive purpose, from a defensive perspective. So there is a moat, there are crocodiles in the moat, there is a fire, so hammer, nails so that elephants can't break it. But before the cannonball or after the cannonball got destroyed by the long way, every fort was occupied because somebody opened a gate. If you see history, so similarly in cybersecurity, in spite of having enormous amount of defense spending a lot, if somebody clicks a link, you are allowing the attacker to come in. Because to be a good cybersecurity, you have to think like a hacker. For a hacker, he doesn't look at your strengths, he looks at the weakness. I normally tell this, have you ever seen, because we all heard of burglaries and all, people, especially in summer when people are sleeping on the top, doors get broken. How are these doors broken? You have a latch, you have a good type of lock. The weakest part of the door is what? It is the hinge. The hinge is on 3 small screws. You have a 6-inch crowbar, put it in the hinge and open it, the door falls off. Cybersecurity is like that. It is the weakness which needs to be addressed. And especially with respect to IT/OT, as I earlier said, we are into data-driven decision making. Data is in sensors. Sensors are in OT. So there is no question of convergence of OT and IT. It is a business sense. It is business requires the data to flow into layer 7, we call it in IT, the central layer, to make the analytics possible, to have the dashboards to the top management so that they know they have the data on the fly. Like if you have S4 SAP, what does it mean? It has all the data in memory. You make the data available to the decision makers on the fly. That is the S4 HANA beauty. And if you don't get data, what is the use of S4 HANA? So there is no question of convergence. And I personally see that CISO is an enabler for decision. There is a risk in everything. So how do we mitigate risk? CISO has to be enabler of business, not as a naysayer. We have 2 types basically. So how do we enable business in IT and OT? There are devices which make data one way. So when I consume data from OT, there are devices available in the market, and these devices do not have an IP address. So if I do a hack, this device is not visible to me, but it is there in the network. It will protect my circuits, the OT layer, to see that data is one way. Then if you see the statistics, cloud has come big incentive, but cloud is shared responsibility. Last year, 40% of the cloud service providers have been hacked world over, 40%. So just by going to cloud, because cloud service, again, you manage the cloud. Cloud service provider, he says, he will never give you a guarantee. He says, it is shared responsibility. And in India, 2,200 cyber attacks have happened. of major industries. So per day, 5 to 6. So this is the reality we live in. So how do you address it? So one way is make the data flow so that no attacker can go back into the field. So nuisance value control as so geopolitical vector is mitigated. Second is why does somebody hack? Commercial. So how do I protect my data? Can I encrypt my data? There are tools available in the market. Quantum cryptography is not a theory now. It is a product available in the market. There is a research paper which shows that AES 256 encryptography can be broken in 5 hours flat using quantum cryptography. And Chinese have done it. It is a published newspaper. So NIST, which is the American standard, I have already defined by 2025, quantum cryptography has to be insured. So we also have in India, startups are there. So if you can encrypt your data, suppose somebody hacks it, because it's not in your hands. You do mechanism, some employee makes a mischief, and per se also 60 to 70% of attacks happen because of insiders, not because of outsider. It is because of insider, because all the locks are done. The keys are with the most disgruntled employee, who is outsourced, the lowest paid, who is the maximum. You all the keys give to an outsource. You outsource your IT, and you outsource on L1 basis. So you get the cheapest labor. You give the key to him. So that is a risk. So how you ensure that risk factor? So let's say you encrypt your data. So the nuisance value is gone. Suppose somebody does a ransomware attack. What does he do? He shames you. He puts you public some data, which may not be garbage, which may not be operational data. But still we lose face as a customer, as an organization. So if you encrypt it, that probability is negated. Make one flow, make it encrypted, and have a copy of the data with you at different levels. Encrypt it. So how do you mitigate the risk? Zero trust is one thing. Zero trust is trust nobody. When you trust nobody, how do you trust the solution provider? Because solution providers, typically multinationals, after taking contract, they open their SI. None of them directly work because the SI front ends them. So you are basically left at the skills of the SI, the system integrator. So is he strong enough? Can you define the system integrator? And supply chain. Supply chain, because you are connected into so many areas, almost 25% of the attacks are happening because of supply chain. So how can you protect yourself from supply chain? So that is the new vector which is coming in. People are breaking their heads on it. And power industry, I think recently I heard CISO of power industry, Shri M.A.K.P. Singh. He was saying that power industry is shortly coming within a month of supply chain guidelines. Like if you are a vendor, if you want to participate in tender, your cyber security will be audited based on some standards. So that is going to be the new norm which will be coming within 6 months across India.
Fantastic. I think very interesting response from your side, and I think there are multiple layers to it. First of all, thank you for, in a way, demystifying the element of cybersecurity to this group. I'm sure the set of energy professionals here will not, all of them will not boast to be cybersecurity experts, but the way you described it and how, the analogy of somebody opening the gate and that probably leading to the maximum number of cyber attacks is very insightful, and I'm sure each of us can learn something from it. At the same time, the elements around zero trust or, even getting the basics right from encryption to also the auditing of the vendors, I think is important. Though I, at least personally, I believe there's a strong behavioral aspect as well to avoiding the cybersecurity attacks, and that includes awareness and driving that level of information amongst the workforce. So thank you for this. Let me now kind of move to a slightly different topic, and Mr. Pankaj, this is to you. one of the elements around digital transformation is it is almost wrong or unfair to expect an organization to do everything by itself, and therefore partnerships become very important. And I read somewhere that PPAC, I think, had a recent partnership with IEA. This is with regard to sharing of data and insights. I'm sure this group would be very interested in figuring out what is it that we are doing with them and how some of these insights can benefit the sector.
Thank you. Even in previous session or any energy debate these days has energy transition in it. So energy transition is not going to take place, it has already taken place. And that is where it is required that everything related to energy gets democratized. So wherever the data or information or knowledge about energy is there, that should get collaborated. And that was the idea when we approached IAA, who normally takes energy data of India from us, and we also take some data from them. But we thought that it should not be just data exchange. We should collaborate for more things about how energy transition, which is actually taking place at different speed in different countries. It is not the same speed. There are countries, although their sizes may be very small, but they are very fast in adopting renewals. And there are countries which are even behind us. So there is need that we learn from each other's stories, from each other's studies, from each other's research. That was the idea when we entered into an understanding with them that we will collaborate for various studies, and we will try to find that how transition is taking place in different countries and which energies are being preferred in different countries. And for example, I would like to tell you that when we, in initial kind of study or in exchange, we find when we analyze world data, we find that LPG, which is favorite cooking fuel in country, is not actually used as cooking fuel in other countries. So what energies are used there? There we find that it is actually the e-cooking, which is now very prevalent in Europe and Americas. So can that be the fuel of cooking in our country also? So for that we need that their stories or their researches to be shared and to be understood. So that is the basic idea, that we should exchange not just data, which is very basic kind of thing, as you also asked in the first segment itself, that what we do with the data. So our effort in this collaboration is that how we can use our data or world data for betterment of humankind in these times of energy transition.
Perfect. Thank you. Very insightful, and look forward to more insights from this collaboration. I'm also mindful of time. I think we are kind of running out of it. So just one last question to each of the panel members, and we'll request you to quickly kind of respond to it. So Mr. Muralikrishna, this is, it's, if you were to do some crystal ball gazing and kind of almost envision a utility of the future, what digital technologies could be helpful there? If you were to place one bet, what would that be?
The major concern which we are expecting the increasing technologies is the manufacturing industry to get up with more cyber equipment, which has to be viable for the small RE plants. They have to acquire for the cyber security at that side. That is the one-line answer.
Got it. Thank you. Mr. Paparaju, I'll move to you. The same question. What is that one disruptive digital theme that you think will impact your area of work?
I think in oil and gas industry, normally we are going for latest technologies, but the step change in technology will come with a new technology which is already implemented in the Western world, called distributed acoustic sensing. We are not yet seen in India distributed acoustic sensing. It gives a lot of, using fiber optics, I can monitor a well I can do a vertical seismic profiling, I can log a well, I can do a pipeline monitoring, I can do a gas leakage unique fiber optics. So distributed acoustic sensing will give me a tremendous leverage at a very low cost because it will remove the ATEC certification. The certification required at the oil and gas industry, especially from sensor portion, because there is no electricity, it is only light. It is already implemented it's proven technology, it's already implemented in the Western world. That's one area. And I also see from cyber security perspective, generative AI. Because earlier in AI, a model used to be learnt over a period of year, even in a normal functioning models. Now the models are so fast learning themselves. The latest generative AI repairs itself on its own. Chat 3.5, GPT and 4. They repair themselves on their own. So it's sort of a Terminator scenario. So the advantage which gives is I can roll out solution much faster. Like normally in process measurement, especially in oil and gas, we have a three-phase measurement, we call it. Liquid is water, oil and gas combined. To separate, to measure it, we have to separate it them. The separation infrastructure cost. But we have virtual flow metering technology is there. So that may take into thing where I can have using AI and ML, I can do a predictive flow and metering. So these are areas where AI ML has a lot of future.
Perfect. Thank you. Mr. Pankaj, same question to you.
Yeah. I will not say that what particular technology will be there which can be useful, but rather it is how technology is being used. In fact, you know that oil and gas are commodities. They are not products like any other consumer goods. So how we can deliver better products to customers or consumers is through services only. And digitalization can help in that respect to the great extent. And that can happen when technologies or digitalization is across consumer, supplier, all kind of, for example, I will tell you that that kind of technology is coming now. Some automobile manufacturers are starting to install that kind of technologies in their vehicles, cars, where the technology tells them that how much fuel is left and where is the next outlet, where they can fuel. That kind of utilization of the digitalization will help in efficiencies. So efficiency, and it is said that efficiency is the first fuel. If we can bring efficiencies in system, whether it is at the end of producers or consumers, we will have much more fuel at hand to be used for better things. So I will only say that it is that how the technology used will determine how we fare in future.
Thank you. And would like to thank the panel for their amazing insights. I would like to conclude by saying, I mean, I've spent a lifetime of work with the energy sector, working with various players, and the last few years of that have been working in the area of digital analytics with a lot of my clients. And I must tell you, while some of the digital analytics adoption that this sector does may not be as quote-unquote glamorous as you would see in some of the other segments, but the kind of work that is happening, and that is happening in India with some of both public and private sector players, is truly phenomenal. From using artificial intelligence and machine learning to improve the yield of a fluidized catalytic cracker to improving the station heat rate in a power plant. I mean, some of those things are actually happening, leveraging the power of data, and it is absolutely a revolution that is on. And I'm just hoping that it just gets better and better with time, while of course maintaining cybersecurity and making sure that the bottom doesn't come off. So with that, a very big thank you to the panel for their amazing insights and very, very witty responses. And thank you to the audience as well.